I thought I'd say a few words about how this Political Security Committee works. And I will not go into any procedural details, but more to sort of highlight a little bit of where I think we've been fairly effective in terms of formulating a comprehensive reinforced diplomacy in the last year and a half. I'll say a few words about a very concrete example about the Horn of Africa, which I think is I know it's going to be discussed later, but I just want to mention some aspects of that which I think are key. And finally, in order not to shy away from the challenges that are there, I'll mention some of the ones that I see which are the most difficult ones. But first on the PSC. The PSC, Political Security Committee that I chair on behalf of the High Representative, Cathy Ashton, is a committee made up of the 27 member states ambassadors in Brussels. That in itself is, there's several aspects to that. One is that we can, on a very short notice, a Sunday morning if need be, call them all together if there's a crisis, if there's a need to quickly formulate a common view, a common position on a policy issue, on a crisis. Normally we avoid that. We have regular meetings several times a week. They are ambassadors, which is a good thing because they actually, all of them report more or less directly to their foreign ministers, so they're empowered to take decisions on a very short basis, which is a great advantage in the quick response function that we try to operate under. Now, what has changed with the Lisbon Treaty is that there's a continuity here. There's a permanent, well, nothing in life is permanent, fortunately, but there is a permanent chairmanship as opposed to the previous arrangement, which was the rotating presidency chairing this committee. Now, the advantage of this new system is that there is, as I said, a continuity. There's a direct link between myself and Cathy Ashton and the External Action Service, and we have at our disposal, if you like, the whole network of EU instruments, the delegations, the 147 or whatever it is, EU delegations around the world. We have the special representatives, we have the high-level diplomatic officials, starting from Cathy Ashton and managing directors, really available to us, to member states, on a hourly basis, if you like, in Brussels. Now, what has not changed in the Lisbon Treaty, and I think it was mentioned in passing this morning, is that there's still a consensus rule. Every ambassador, if you like, has a veto right. So if you feel that I look tired, it's not just the jet lag. It's also this constant work in trying to get 27, soon to be 28 member states to actually be united and to have outcomes that are not just the least common denominator, but actually puts the EU in a relevant, adequate, ambitious, unified foreign policy. And I must say, and there's a debate about the UN Security Council. I don't want to make any comparisons with that and what we do in Brussels, but there are 5 vetoes in New York. We have 27, and in spite of that, I must say, and you might want to differ, and you might want to debate this in the question and answer session, that we're actually able to, for the most part, come up with what I think are relevant and fairly ambitious foreign policy, in spite of the fact that there are diverging views as we enter into debate. And this is based very much on a notion that it's a bit of a threshold to actually block a decision. It's not something that normally anyone wants to be part of, and there's a lot of obvious diplomacy going on and political pressure too, in order to make sure that no one sort of is blocking something that everyone else or most others would feel is a relevant way forward. So all in all, I think we're doing okay on this. I just want to give a few short examples of where this has worked very good. On an ideal day, you might have a crisis, and we've had them in Bosnia, where Dodik has been making a lot of trouble for us. We've had an Albanian crisis. We've had the whole Kosovo-Serbia situation, which, if you look back a year, it was basically intractable. What we've been able to do here is that we could, as a crisis erupts, say the Albanian situation a year ago, after the elections or upcoming elections, people killed. Very tense situation on the ground. we can pull our ambassadors together. We can have our, at this point it was our managing director, the former Slovak foreign minister, was working in the External Action Service, Miroslav Lajčák, to sit with us all, suggest a mandate in the morning. All member states sign up to that, and he will travel to Albania in the afternoon with a very strong message coming from 27 member states, and the whole enlargement sort of package, the whole pressure and push that we have through the fact that in our own neighborhood, and I mentioned deliberately Albania, Kosovo, Serbia, and Bosnia, countries that want to seek a closer relationship with us, and we can use that very much as a pressure in order to get them back in line. And I just want to mention that because when we speak about the comprehensive approach, there's a lot of talk about CSDP, military action, etc. But I'm just saying that there are more instruments in the toolbox of the European Union that go beyond CSDP. And I think this whole magnetism that comes from the fact that in our own neighborhood, many countries want to eventually join the European Union is an excellent instrument that we can add to diplomacy. Now, turning away from, I just want to give the example of what we do beyond our neighborhood. And it's been mentioned this morning, Somalia, the Horn of Africa. I just want to put on the table all the instruments we have available to us here. We mentioned and Admiral Potts is here to talk about the Atalanta operation, which is the most comprehensive military activity going on, because there are clear rules of engagement. They're fairly robust. They're so robust that even our American friends who usually accuse us of being too soft are discussing with us whether we are going a bit too far sometimes here. But they're clear. There is a legal framework to underpin that in terms of agreements with some countries in the region to try pirates should we be able to catch them. And all this is combined with the training mission, building security in Somalia proper, a very major financing efforts to AMISOM, the African Union security force, building security in Somalia. We topped that up with a special representative, a very high-level engagement politically in trying to get Somalia on the right track, using development aid and other pushes, political pressure to make sure that the transitional government is moving towards the transition that we all want to see. And I think the record shows that all of this has been fairly effective. Piracy is down, the political process is on the right track, and security has been improved. And I think much of that is part to the comprehensive set of instruments that the EU has been able to do, of course coordinated very closely with our American friends, but also as mentioned by Walter Stevens, Indians, Chinese, Japanese, Russians, and Turks and others who want to join up in this effort. I still think, I just want to mention before I leave the floor to others, that of course all is not rosy. We have this economic problems in Europe. You are affected here as well, which I think is going to limit the political will in actually putting more costly operations on the ground. So this whole CSDP aspect, which is an important part of what we do, of course risks at being played down where member states are not ready to put up the resources. But I want to say that the trend that I see quite clearly is that this whole economic downturn has also led to a much more serious debate about how we use our resources. Now, can we do more with less? I don't know, probably not. I think it's a very relevant question. But what I see is a much more serious debate about cooperation among ourselves, the pooling and sharing initiative, working much closely with partners such as the US, a much more, no-nonsense approach to EU-NATO cooperation, avoiding duplication. This is much more seriousness about that debate right now, which I think is a good thing coming out of this, but I don't want to downplay the challenges, of course. The other part is our civilian missions. We mentioned that we have 4 new missions being planned, and this after some people a few months ago were saying that CSDP is dead. It's clearly not. But let's face it, we are challenged with also getting the right kind of resources. Civilian expertise is more hard to come by than military expertise. Police, judges, gender experts, institution builders, etc., are not in abundance in any country. And I still think we have a challenge in trying to convince ministers of justice and interior that putting police in Kosovo is actually not just a question of solidarity with the Kosovo people or with the European Union. It's actually building security in Europe in a more sophisticated way, and it's worthwhile investing in that kind of resources. We still have some time, some way to go there, clearly. And as someone said, American help to build up those kind of resources and us doing more together with the US on this, I think this could be very useful. Finally, I think it's also worthwhile saying that there is still a bureaucracy in the European Union. I think that's need to be improved a lot. We still have a way to go before we can safely say that our political ambitions, the strategy that we have set up, are also, shall we say, the strategies that steer how we use development money, etc. Not just the vast resources available within the Commission structures, but also among member states, to have all come together and make sure that we all go towards one direction. Afghanistan is a good example, I think, where we still need to do a lot of work, which Jim Townsend mentioned, in order to get everyone lined up under some coordinated strategies and make sure that the political will, which is usually there, is also matched and with money coming forward quickly to match those political strategies. These are all things, this is work in progress. It's going to take a while, but I just want to say that it's clearly not out of the woods yet.